And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson. Week 5 is now in the books in the National Football League. I don't know, Andrew, I don't know about you, but as far as I'm concerned, both of our teams definitely did not play this weekend. And for the rest of the NFL, a lot of shakeup did happen. Some new teams that were in first place. We saw a team finally get their first win in almost over a year. And two really ugly primetime games to end the weekend. One in a blowout, one last night that was just an overall terrible offensive experience from both sides of the ball. But overall, very interesting week 5 as we now head into week number 6.
I mean, you can speak on behalf of your team, but my team had a bye week, so...
As far as I'm concerned, my team had a bye week too.
Oh, congratulations. So we're both still 1-3. Good to hear.
And as far as I'm concerned, I'm on a bye week again this week too.
Oh, me too, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. We'll go into the bye weeks that we had this past weekend, but let's go into last Thursday's game between the Bears and the Commanders. And obviously on paper, not a good matchup on primetime. This was a terrible game last year on primetime. And the NFL said, hey, you know what? Let's do it all over again. So we had the Bears going into Washington this time around as the game was in Chicago last year. And right out of the gate, Johnson, the Bears looked very strong in this game. DJ Moore had himself a huge start to the first quarter, getting a touchdown drive to open up the game for Chicago. He would finish this game with an unbelievable stat line. 8 catches, 230 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, and he accounted for basically all of Justin Fields' receiving and passing yards in this game as Fields goes 15-29 for 282 and 4 touchdowns. And believe it or not, the Chicago Bears getting their first win in about 346 days as they beat the Washington Commanders on the road by the final of 40-20. The Bears fans can finally celebrate a victory. They almost had one earlier in the year against Denver. Obviously, that game got away from them, but they didn't have to worry about this game. They pretty much handled this one there on 4, and now go to 1-4 in the season.
You said a terrible game on primetime. This was one of the most entertaining games on primetime we've had in a while.
Well, going into it.
Going into it was supposed to be a snooze fest. But,
yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal performance by Justin Fields. He's looking like the quarterback everyone never really expected him. No, right. Because here's the thing. No one was hoping for him to pass at such an elite level. What sold people on Justin Fields, and you saw it last year, was his ability to make plays, scrambling outside the pocket, rushing. He was one of the best rushing quarterbacks, but it seems like he completely forgot that. Like the CIA wiped his mind, and now he's a pocket passer. It looked like he was throwing the West Coast style of offense, the way he was just kind of hanging back in the pocket, deep passes, hitting his receivers in stride. He looked like a completely different quarterback. And hey, this is the second week in a row he looked like this. It's also the second week in a row that Chase Claypool wasn't at a game. Coincidence? Maybe.
Well, Chase Claypool is now Miami Dolphins, so he's no longer with the team. And you might be right. I mean, this definitely is leading to some better things for the Chicago Bears team. It seems as if Fields has finally found that rhythm that you were hoping for. And DJ Moore, he looked every bit of the part of the guy that they traded for this past offseason. Remember, they traded the number 1 pick to get him and also trade down to number 9 and get some extra future picks. And he looked every bit of the part in this game, going for those 230, 3 touchdowns. He just torched this Washington secondary. And if you had faced him in fantasy football this week, it was a rough going because past Thursday, you were pretty much down 40 to 50 points maybe with the way your standard PPR leagues potentially are. Moore had a field day. Fields also, no pun intended, had a field day. And the Bears finally can celebrate after almost a full calendar year of not winning a football game.
Yeah, Justin Fields had me 41 points, and I just happened to win by 12 points. So Justin Fields really came up big for me. Every yard counts, and Justin Fields got me a couple more yards, and very, very happy with his performance.
Yeah, and you cannot, if you're a Bears fan, you're now hoping that this can go into next week's game against the Vikings, who are very shorthanded right now without the injury to Justin Jefferson. So there's a chance the Bears can win back-to-back games and get some momentum going the rest of the season and get Justin Fields that momentum that he needs to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. So this is a good stepping stone for this Bears team this season as they now go into week number 6. Let's go into the Sunday slate now as we start off with another London game, the second straight week that we had a London International Series game as the Jaguars, who were in London last week because they took on the Falcons last week, excuse me, I lost my voice for a second, went to face the Buffalo Bills, who were traveling after their big-time win over the Miami Dolphins. And great performance from Jacksonville out of the gate. They led 11-0 at the end of the first quarter. Defense was strong. They had a great rushing attack from Travis Etienne. Calvin Ridley made some big-time catches. And Buffalo was making it close, especially towards the end of the game, but the Jaguars defense stood tall just when they needed it the most. Lawrence got a big third down conversion to Calvin Ridley, and Travis Etienne would set up the game-winning touchdown as the Jags hang on to beat the Bills in London 25-20. Both teams now go into 3-2 on the season. Overall, what were your initial thoughts about what happened in this game for both sides, whether you want to start off with Jacksonville or Buffalo in this case?
Well, the outcome doesn't surprise me. I had the Jags winning, and I believe I had them covering as well. Didn't surprise me at all because Jacksonville only spent a week there. They played the previous London game. They go there 1-3, and they come out 500 now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Or they 3-2 now. The season. Yep.
Yeah, they go down 1-2. Excuse me. They come out of London 3-2. New team, new lease on life. Trevor Lawrence is looking great, and it just looked like Buffalo was kind of jet lagged. It took them about 55 minutes or so to realize that there was a football game going on. That's the main takeaway here. It wasn't that Jacksonville was so much better than Buffalo, but more so that they've been there for a week. I think they're evenly matched teams, but Jacksonville was just there longer for them. If it was if it was in Jacksonville or Buffalo, would have been a completely different story. You probably would have seen two teams that would have been evenly matched throughout the game instead of seeing that game that we saw on Sunday. It was a lot closer on paper than it was in reality.
And you think about it, too, the impact for Buffalo. They lost so many defensive starters in this game, Matt Milano being one of them, to a potential season-ending injury. I don't know if they confirmed if he's out for the season or not, but remember, going into the game, they didn't have Tre'Davious White, who's out for the year with a torn Achilles. Then they lose all these guys on defense, and they really were not happy about the playing conditions of this game. And overall, they just could not get out of the gate early on. You spoke about it. Jacksonville pretty much handled this game most of the first half, and they were able to, hold off the Buffalo comeback in that fourth quarter. And Travis Etienne, as I mentioned, was a big reason why. 136 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns. And he and Trevor Lawrence, the big reason why they go to 3-2 in the season, and they have a big game this upcoming Sunday as they take on the Indianapolis Colts, who do have some injury issues right now at quarterback. But right now, that's a battle for first place in the AFC South as both teams sit at 3-2. And they really could use that game after they beat them in week number 1. And for Buffalo, they now have a primetime game this upcoming Sunday, which, unfortunately for my sake, is against my New York Giants, which will not be a fun game for me to say the least, as that most likely will be a blowout for Buffalo to get the win to go back on track. So we'll have to see how these two teams react after this London game going into week number 6. But speaking of my New York Giants, Johnson, I didn't expect much from their game against Miami. They kept it closer than I thought in the first half. They only went into the halftime trailing by a touchdown. But Miami in the second half pretty much dominated the rest of the way. Devin Achane had another solid game, 11 carries for 151 yards and a touchdown. He did get injured in this game and most likely will miss a couple weeks for the Dolphins. So a big blow for that rushing attack. They still have Raheem Mostert, which is a good thing for them. But Tyreek Hill had another big game, 181 yards. And the biggest story on the other side of the ball for the Giants is that Daniel Jones gets injured in this game in the third quarter, or actually in the fourth quarter, excuse me. And he is right now questionable to play this upcoming Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. That's a big injury right now for him. He has a neck injury. That's the same one that he had in 2021. And if he cannot go this Sunday, then it's going to be Tyrod Taylor facing his former team, the Buffalo Bills, on primetime football. So either way, the Giants do not fare very well in this matchup, no matter who the quarterback is. but not having Daniel Jones will not help them at all. But not much more to say about this matchup. Just another rough game for New York. They now drop to 1-4. Miami bounces back from the loss to Buffalo as they now go to 4-1.
Well, there's a couple things to mention here. The first thing being that it was a lot closer than people realize. In the first half, it was a game with the New York Football Giants. They had a great defensive play that led to a touchdown.
Their first half touchdown this season.
Yeah, I believe it was a Matt Breida rushing touchdown after a very long.
No, it was a pick six for Jason Pinnock, 102 yards.
It was a pick six. I thought Breida ran it in, but excuse me.
Nah, it was not.
I don't know where I got that information from. I was literally watching the game with you. Anyways,
I think Breida got a touchdown later in the game.
There it is. Okay, so I got my touchdowns mixed up on that one. What the bigger news is here is that this shows Miami has a couple of they're not immune, and you saw it in the game versus the Patriots too. Because now this is the second time where a anemic offense has kind of lit them up in the first half of the game. Their defense isn't all that, and everyone knows that offense wins games, defense wins championships. And if Miami's really serious about getting a championship, they need to really reinforce that defensive deadline. They're going to lose Devin Achane now for not the remainder of the season, but for a good portion of it. It's still undetermined how long he's going to be out for. And he was really emerging as their number one back. Raheem Mostert, even though he was getting first back carries for the last couple of weeks, he was not acting like a first back. So they're going to lose him. Tyreek Hill continues to be unstoppable. The only cornerback to hold him this year is Christian Gonzalez. I will keep on saying that until another corner keeps them in check. But overall, good win for Miami. Keeps them on track and keeps them in that race for the AFC East title.
Yeah, they stay in first place now with the Buffalo loss. So now they have sole possession of first place going into week number 6. And as a Giants fan, I don't even know. I mean, there's pretty much no light at the end of the tunnel right now. You have a primetime game again coming this Sunday, and it will not be pretty, that's for sure. So maybe they surprise me, but I just don't have any faith in it happening right now. That's pretty much the state that I'm currently at with this Giants team. So to get a sour taste out of my mouth, we'll go into the next game of our schedule, and let's talk about maybe a upset in a lot of people's minds of what happened this past Sunday between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. And this was a game in which Baltimore pretty much handled the Steelers most of that first half, I would say. I mean, it was still a close game. Excuse me again. But going into the fourth quarter, the Ravens just had a multitude of things going wrong for them. They had a bunch of drops, which could have been touchdowns for them offensively and could have given them the win easily. And Lamar Jackson had an interception thrown late in the fourth quarter that set up the game-winning drive for the Pittsburgh Steelers. As the Steelers come back in the fourth and win this one 17-10, both teams now go into 3-2 in the season. The Steelers, believe it or not, after 5 weeks in the season, are now in sole possession of first place in the AFC North right now. And it wasn't a great offensive game for Pittsburgh, but when they needed a touchdown the most, they got it. And they get another big, spectacular game out of George Pickens. 6 catches, 130 yards, the game-winning touchdown, as I mentioned. And they now go to 3-2, as I said. And for Baltimore, they now fall to 3-2, and they go to London this upcoming weekend to take on the Titans. And that's going to be kind of a tough game for this Baltimore offense. If they continue to have these drop issues on the offensive side, they have a potential to fall to 3-3 on the year.
Now, I do want to point out that excellent play that you mentioned with Kenny Pickett. That was an audible. That was not a play call designed by Matt Canada, right? Because if you saw the reaction, he was pissed. Even though it was a walk-off touchdown, he was not happy at all.
He's never happy.
So now the question this what raises a good point now. The question is, how much of Kenny Pickett's talent is he squandering? Because if Kenny Pickett's calling that off an audible after one of the better defenses in the league, what can he do under a real offensive coordinator that's not running, 3rd and 6 draw plays in your own end zone? There's a lot to say here about Matt Canada's play calling, and his reaction said everything. We say this a lot in team sports. When a man gets benched, or if you're in basketball, football, you get sent to the bench, and you start winning, you make a comeback. And if you're not happy to be part of that comeback and part of that win, you're not a team player. And that said a lot about his character here.
Yeah, and I think a big thing for the Steelers now and seeing with their offense, they go into their bye week this upcoming weekend, as I mentioned, in first place, and they won't be getting Deontay Johnson back, it looks like, in week number 7, which is a big get for that offense. And another big thing about this team is that their defense is a big reason why they won this game. TJ Watt is a monster. I saw today that he got injured in this game. I don't remember the severity of the injury, but for any normal human being, it's one of those injuries where, like, yeah, he's coming out of the game. He's probably out for a couple of weeks of the season, and then you hear that, and he's just like, oh yeah, no, this is normal for TJ Watt because he's just that good of a football player. And another great win for Pittsburgh, and in the case of the defense, won them. Same thing that happened when they played Cleveland a couple weeks ago on Monday Night Football, and they go to 3-2. I'm looking at it right now. He suffered a dislocated finger and tore multiple ligaments in that game, and he's still a huge reason why they won.
Yeah, unfortunate that he did suffer those injuries, but like you said, absolutely critical to his team's success on the field this week.
Yeah, but listen, the good thing for him is that it didn't keep him off the field in that game, so you would tend to believe that he's going to probably still play. And with the bye week coming up, that's big for him to get well rested and get ready for their next game. So huge momentum for the Steelers going into the bye, now 3-2 in the season. We'll see if Baltimore can bounce back in London this upcoming weekend with the Tennessee Titans. Now we move on to our next game, and I know, Johnson, I know you're going to want to keep it short and sweet because this was a pretty bad performance from your New England Patriots this past weekend.
There's a Patriots game this weekend?
It pretty much felt like that as the Saints went into Foxborough to take on the Patriots, and they just dominated this game on both sides of the ball, winning this one 34-0. Another tough game for Mac Jones in the case of a couple of interceptions. One of them, I remember, at least was because of him getting thrown out. He was getting hit as he threw. So,
and the second one, the receiver came down with it, then it came pop loose, and then they caught the ball from him catching it. So he literally threw it in his chest, came down with it, took a step. I think it should have been counted as a fumble, but it's neither here nor there.
And this was, remember, the first game for the Patriots without Matthew Judon and Christian Gonzalez. So tough going on both sides of the football. They just had no answer for this Saints team. And the Saints are still a team that I really can't, put my finger on how they are going to be this season. Are they going to be good? Are they going to be bad? They've come off the week before where they lose a home game to the Bucs in embarrassing fashion, and then they put up this performance against the Patriots. They go down 3-2, and for New England now, they fall to 1-4. And dare I say, Johnson, does this end your season, or do you still have any hope for this team down the stretch? They have Vegas coming up this upcoming weekend.
No, because
McDaniels Belichick matchup.
I still think you could beat Vegas, no matter how bad this past week is. Does it end the season? Well, this was one of the games you were supposed to win.
Yeah.
Going into the season, everyone knew that the first half of the Patriots' schedule, it's a very, very hard schedule, but the first half was egregiously bad. Most experts had them pretty much beating the Jets, which they did, and then going 1-3. The Saints game is another game that they should have won. So this is, I will say confidently, this is the first game that they were pegged to win, which they should have won, but they lost. You have the Raiders, you have the Raiders, Commanders, Colts, the New York Giants, which will be Tank Bowl. The Steelers late in the season, you have the Broncos as well, and another game, the Jets. You can get 8 or 9 wins. Realistically, 8 wins is probably your ceiling. That is probably the best case scenario. If everything were to break their way right now, I think they get 8 wins. If every single thing broke their way, I see 7 wins. But I probably see about 4 or 5. That's where we're currently at.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Well, actually, no, I'm not at that kid because I'm at the point where the Giants, I have no faith in them winning another game this season. Just how it's just been that bad, and that's unfortunate because I had so much expectations going into the year. But yeah, I think it's going to really come down to, for the Patriots, I mean, their offense has to do something this upcoming weekend. I mean,
you need an offensive line. That's what you need. At one point of this game, I took a look down for, I kid you not, less than a second, and I looked back up, and Mac Jones was ready to get rushed in the pocket. It turned out that they ran it was a 4-on-6. So you had 6 people on that line and 4 people pass rushing him, and they couldn't contain the pass rush. If it's not a single person, a quarterback in the league, past or present, can succeed under that kind of pressure. I don't care if you have Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, you have Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler in your backfield, Breece Hall. I don't care what you have out there as weapons. If you only have 1.5, 2 seconds to throw, that's it. You're not going to succeed. So, does Mac Jones shoulder some of the blame? Yes. But there are a lot more glaring holes on this team than Mac Jones.
Well, I mean, the offense has got to fix something. They're going into this next game with the Raiders. They've been outscored 72-3 in their last 2 games. So I have the
solution on that as well. Yeah. And this is why it worked. If you look at the game film for the first couple of weeks, and it'll be very easy to realize this. Can you name a single Patriots receiver that can get separation on their own?
Maybe Juju Smith.
Maybe, right? And that's a maybe. They went from doing teams covering them with zone, like they always did the Patriots, to using man coverage over the last couple of weeks. That's been the main difference over the last 2 or 3 weeks. They're using man coverage because they realize not a single player can get separation. Why is Mac Jones throwing into triple coverage? Why is he throwing into double coverage? Why is he throwing in tight windows? Because none of them can get open. If you had just one player that was able to get some sort of separation, you would see a different team right now. At least offensively. I mean, defensively, they're going to be in shambles now because no Judon, no Christian Gonzalez, like you said. So they have their own demons to fight that way. But you would at least see maybe a passable offense that would get you maybe 17, 18 points a week, right? All right, it's not pretty, but at least, hey, you see a touchdown, a couple field goals every week, right?
Yeah.
That's what you would see. Now, you're not seeing anything because not a single person can get separation into playing man. So you got to be embarrassed as a wide receiver if you can't get any sort of separation playing man coverage. I get if you're being double teamed or triple teamed, or if they're putting, the best corner on their team against you. I get that, but it's man coverage. You have to make a play somewhere. If you can't get any separation 30, 40 snaps into the game, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, New England, this pretty much, they have to win this next game against the Raiders. And we know how McDaniels acts when he's beaten Belichick before. I'm sure this is a big game for him, considering that the Raiders have a chance to be 500 on the season if they get the win. But it's all or nothing for the Patriots going into this game. I mean, especially after what happened last season between these two teams, they really need to get the sour taste out of their mouth and go into Vegas and get a huge win on the road. So I'm curious to see what happens on Sunday, but
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm most likely the same way. Anyway, let's move on to our next game in the schedule. And how about this game? This is kind of one of the more exciting games of the weekend in terms of finishes. We had the Houston Texans taking on the Atlanta Falcons, and yes, if you went into the season saying this was one of the more exciting games of the week, you would have been called crazy. But this game had all the hype going into it. CJ Stroud, we know all the hype that's been going on with him. He's having himself a great start to his NFL season. As well on the other side is Bijan Robinson for the Atlanta Falcons. Both of these rookies are lighting it up for their teams, and they got them to a current 2-2 record going into this game. We saw late in the fourth quarter, CJ Stroud leading a 75-yard touchdown drive in 5 minutes, getting a touchdown to Dalton Schultz with a minute 49 left on the clock to give the Texans the lead 19-18. And unfortunately for them, it was just too much time given to the Atlanta Falcons as Desmond Ridder was able to go down the field in 10 plays and a minute and 49 seconds to give Younghoe Koo the game-winning 37-yard field goal as the Falcons go to 3-2 on the season with a 21-19 win over Houston. Despite the loss, though, for the Texans, Johnson, CJ Stroud setting an NFL record in this game. He's thrown 177 pass attempts this season, has not thrown an interception to start his career. That is a new NFL record, so if you're Houston, the future is definitely bright.
He looked mighty mortal this weekend, Val. That was the one thing about CJ Stroud. He's had a phenomenal game where he's had multiple games over 300 yards of passing. If you can get 1 or 2 games out of your rookie, that's considered to be a win. But to get multiple games, that's when you start talking about, okay, maybe this is the franchise guy. Like you said, he does set that record. But CJ Stroud, 250 yards and a touchdown, average game. I would say that's an
Compared,
average game for a quarterback
yeah,
today.
compared to what he's done so far, it's definitely an average game, but it's still a
Yeah,
solid
like
game
60%
nonetheless.
completion. That's an average game. It's not. It's good. Don't get me wrong. That's a good game. If that was my quarterback, 250 yards, a passing touchdown, no interceptions, had good ball security, was mainly accurate, able to hit the deep pass, good. But that's kind of average in the NFL nowadays. But if that's going to be his kind of floor, sky's the limit.
Yeah, and on the other side for Atlanta, they finally get a great game out of Desmond Ritter. I mean, there were a lot of talk after the Jacksonville game in London, in which Ritter had some really bad throws, and it cost the Falcons that game. And then he comes back in this game, and he has a really solid game: 28 to 37 for 329 yards and a touchdown. And if he's able to get Bijan Robinson involved and Kyle Pitts as well, involved a lot more in this offensive scheme, it's going to make him develop even better than what the Falcons are hoping for at this moment. And for now, they're in first. They're a half game back of first place, I should say, behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So there is still a realistic shot this team could win the division if all things go right down the stretch of the season. But they've had to have liked what they've seen out of Ritter this past weekend, and they've definitely have liked what they've seen out of Bijan Robinson throughout the first 5 weeks of the season.
Well, it's the most promise he's shown so far. And remember, he's still a sophomore. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick. I believe he's a
He is right.
sophomore. Not a first round pick. Picked later on. Didn't really start last year. So let's see what he's got. I would give him. I would give him definitely to the end of the year, if not beginning of next year, to kind of get it down pat.
Yeah, remember, people were clamoring for Taylor Heineke to start over him because of Heineke's previous history with the Commanders. And they said, you know what? Ritter's just not working out right now. Let's go to Heineke. And he kind of silenced all the doubters after this game. So a good stepping stone for him going into week number 6. So let's see if Atlanta can build up on this momentum going into week 6. But we'll go into the next game. And we talked about a rookie quarterback in CJ Stroud. We're going to talk about another rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson. And unfortunately for Anthony Richardson, in this game between the Titans and the Colts, Anthony Richardson once again gets injured in the game. Remember, earlier in the year against Houston, he had a concussion that took him out of game. And that was the game against Baltimore, which the Colts were able to win on the road with Gardner Minshew. Richardson gets injured in this one with an AC joint sprain. He's going to miss some time. So a big blow once again to Indianapolis. They're going to have to start now Gardner Minshew for the next couple of weeks at starting quarterback. And he's got a big game against his former team this upcoming weekend on Sunday, which we'll preview later on the show. But the biggest story going into this game, Johnson, was Jonathan Taylor finally returning for the Indianapolis Colts. He finally got that contract extension he was looking for. I believe a 3-year, $43 million deal for Taylor. So his first game back in action. They weren't going to overload him this week just because he hasn't been, practicing as much these last couple of weeks. So he gets 6 carries in the game and doesn't do much offensively. But the big story for the Colts offense, Zach Moss continues to look really, really good for this Colts rushing attack, maybe giving them a great 1-2 punch with him and Jonathan Taylor, as he goes for 165 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and the Colts, they pull off another big win, this time at home, beating the Titans 23-16. They go to 3-2. As I mentioned earlier, they are tied with Jacksonville for first place. Those two teams will meet on Sunday for the right to go into first place overall by themselves in the AFC South. And for the Titans, they now dropped to 2-3, and a big game upcoming this Sunday in London with Baltimore. What were your initial thoughts about this game? Obviously, the injury to Richardson, the Jonathan Taylor comeback, and do you see any hope for the Indianapolis Colts going down the stretch of the season with Richardson now out for, you would have to think, maybe 3 to 5 weeks?
This is kind of like the Texas A&M situation where the younger, more talented quarterback goes down. You're in the midst of, okay, maybe you can make a playoff run here. In Texas A&M's case, a bowl game run. But Gardner Minshew is probably one of the best backups in the league. Could be a starter in most cases, kind of like Max Johnson for the Aggies. So that's the similarity I'm seeing here. You're gonna get Jonathan Taylor back. He's obviously a little rusty. Hasn't played in over a year or about a year. Has to get his legs back. Got paid. Good for him. He's going to be a big contributor in offense. So I still think the Indianapolis Colts have a lot of hope for. But winning the division, I'm not sure. Wild card berth, I think it's possible.
I think it's all going to be up on Gardner Minshew and how he does in this role. But you mentioned it. He has been a starting quarterback before, and he's definitely one of the better backups in the league right now. So he definitely gives the Colts a chance to win these games, especially considering he's already won a game against Baltimore just a few weeks ago. And now he has a revenge game this upcoming weekend with his former team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So a great opportunity for Gardner this upcoming Sunday and for the next couple of weeks. So we'll have to see what happens between those two teams on Sunday, as we'll preview that later on in the mushing hour. But Jonathan Taylor was not the only person to come back this week, Johnson, as we finally saw the reemergence of Cooper Kupp as the Rams were at home taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. And early on, Matthew Stafford was just throwing the ball to Cooper Kupp, and he missed his old friend from these past couple of seasons. And Kupp was a monster in this game, his first game back, going for 118 yards on 8 catches. Puka Nacua also had 71 yards and 7 catches, with one of them being a touchdown. But unfortunately for the Rams, they were facing a better team in the Philadelphia Eagles. Were not able to really stop A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert, who both went over 100 yards. Goddard had a touchdown in this game. And the Eagles' defense pretty much contained Matthew Stafford and that Rams offense as they held on to win this one 23-14. Eagles going to 5-0 now in the season, and the Rams dropping to 2-3. But there's got to be at least some light at that end of the tunnel, because now you have Cooper Kupp back, and with the emergence of Puka Nacua, that gives the Rams some hope now going in these next couple weeks as they try to maybe potentially be a wild card in this year's NFC playoffs.
Rams still have a lot to hope for, and I still don't think the Eagles are that good. They haven't really had that impressive win to me yet. Yay for the Eagles remaining undefeated, but it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's reminding me of the Steelers a couple of years ago when they went 11-0, because I think they're a lot better than that Steelers team, but that's the kind of vibe they give me right now. They give me the 11-0 Steelers vibes. Like, okay, yeah, you're winning close games, congratulations. But what's this really going to do for you? I mean, until I see them play some real competition, I'm still going to have my hesitations.
Yeah, we'll have to see. The Eagles, remember, obviously went to the Super Bowl last year, and people were still doubting them then. And listen, I don't want them to be good. I'm hoping that this doesn't change, but you're going to probably see the same argument going into next week's show as they take on the New York Jets this upcoming Sunday. Maybe the Jets pull off a stunning upset. I'm kind of hoping for it at this rate. We'll have to see. Before we go into our next game, Johnson, I forgot to put this on our schedule. I wanted to ask you a quick question about the status of this game between the Chiefs and the Vikings. Obviously, the Chiefs won in a controversial fashion, but the biggest story out of this game was the Justin Jefferson injury for Minnesota. And now he's going to be out a couple of weeks potentially for this Vikings team. Does that impact Minnesota's strategy going into the trade deadline? Does that now maybe give them more incentive maybe to just say, you know what, the season's already chalked. Jefferson's going to be out now. We've lost our best offensive weapon. Maybe we just trade Kirk Cousins in a couple weeks, depending on what our record is. Because I really don't like the Vikings now even more. We're not having the best wide receiver in all of football. And this is a huge blow to this team that had so much expectations after last season, winning the North Division. Now they're 1-4 on the year. They take on the Bears this week. I just want to get a quick analysis of what you think about Minnesota now after this Justin Jefferson injury.
So you want a quick vibe check? Is that's what I'm getting here?
Yeah, pretty much a quick vibe check before we go into the Sunday night game.
Like you mentioned, he's on the IR now, and this is my analysis. If the Jets, geez, that's a team. That's a quote team that the
team that could edge the Vikings, yeah.
Kirk Cousins, but if the Vikings don't win at least 2 games in the upcoming weeks, Justin Jefferson is going to be shut down for the rest of the season. This is my take on his injury. If there was a playoff game next week, he would be playing. That's my opinion on his injury. He's had hamstring injuries in the past before. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know a lot about the situation. Yeah. But given past and prior knowledge, I can assume that it's probably in the same realm, and he could probably play on it. They're going to put him on IR. They're going to see how the team does without him. It's the last year of Jefferson's rookie contract.
Right.
And the last year of Kirk Cousins' extension. So my theory is that if the Jets don't win if the Vikings don't win more than one game this upcoming on Jefferson's IR stunt, which they're playing, I believe, the Chiefs, like you said. So they don't win more than one
They played
game.
the Chiefs this past week. I believe they're going into Chicago this upcoming weekend.
Yep, winnable game, winnable game. Yep. So they have to win at least one, maybe two. If they don't, they keep Jefferson shut down for the rest of the year, quote unquote hamstring issues. They're gonna tank for Caleb Williams, and they're gonna reunite Caleb Williams. He's gonna play with the best receiver in the league, and he's gonna be reunited with his college buddy in Jordan Addison, and they're gonna put up
True.
Madden numbers in the NFL. That's my take on this. So, and then Kirk Cousins gets traded to a team that's trying to contend, but probably can't contend, like the Jets.
Okay, so just wanted to get your initial thoughts about that. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. Because I forgot to completely put that in our rundown as of this recording. So now we'll go back to our regularly scheduled program, and we'll talk about the final game of the Sunday slate and a matchup on prime time between the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. And listen, it's been a rough season for me as a Giants fan, but getting to watch the San Francisco 49ers once again embarrass this Dallas Cowboys team definitely brings me some pleasure in my life, as Dallas just had no answer in this one for this 49ers team, and especially George Kittle. Kittle goes for 3 touchdowns in this game. He had all 3 of his catches were touchdowns. Brock Purdy throws for 4 TDs. Christian McCaffrey extended his touchdown streak. And the Niners defense really just embarrassed Dallas on this one. Dak those 3 interceptions. They couldn't run the ball. And San Francisco beats Dallas by a final 42-10. They are also now 5-0, as the Eagles are the only undefeated teams now left in football. Dallas now drops to 3-2 on the season. I don't know what your takes are about this game, but I at least ended my Sunday night on a bit of a high note after watching this dominating win for San Francisco.
I'll take the pride in saying that I think the 49ers are, again, the only real team in the NFL right now, barring any injuries, they're going to win the Super Bowl. A team like the Cowboys, who've looked dominant at some points of the year, completely blanking the Giants. I'm sorry, Nick, but then looking kind of weak and losing to the Cardinals. But the Cardinals have looked better than expected, so it's hard to make. It's hard to see what the Cowboys actually are. However, we know what the Niners are. They're real contenders, and this is what happens. Dak and the Cowboys got caught with their pants down. That's what happened. They played a real team, and they were masquerading as pretenders. It's okay. It's okay to not be a real contender in the NFL. Not everyone wins the Super Bowl every single year. That's everyone's aspiration, but sometimes it's okay to be mid. And that's I think where the Cowboys are at. They're not going to contend for the NFC East championship. They're going to make a wild card game, maybe win a playoff game, but they're going to be mid. And being mid is probably the worst thing you could do in any sport. You either want to be really bad or you want to be really good. Because if you're really bad, you get the best quarterback, like Caleb Williams, or you get the top pick, like Marvin Harrison. But if you're mid, you're praying to God that someone falls to you at 17, like the Patriots did with Christian Gonzalez. They prayed to God hard enough, and he was there for him. So, do you want to be good, or do you want to be bad? And I think that's the direction the Cowboys have to go here. Obviously, they're going to finish the season, whatever. I think Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat now. And if they don't have
the hot seat,
well, on the actual hot seat, he's been on everyone's hot seat for a while, but he's on the Jerry Jones hot seat now. Because remember, Jason Garrett was on the hot seat for like years, but not on the Jerry Jones hot seat. Those are 2 different things.
And they've committed to Dak Prescott still, despite this game, and that's another thing.
Which you should. You should.
No, and listen, as an owner, you definitely have to do that, but it's going to get to a point where if you're Dallas, you're going to say to yourself, how much longer can we really take this where McCarthy and Dak, and it's not leading to anything in the postseason. I mean, how many playoff wins have they had under this regime? And it hasn't worked. And the Niners are the consistent team that eliminates them in the postseason. And for this to happen in the regular season, that's not a good start for this team, because if they have to go back to Santa Clara this upcoming postseason, they will not have any chance of winning, and it really could lead to McCarthy getting fired at the end of the year.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because I don't have high expectations for his team. I really did at the beginning of the year, and that's not even me hating the Cowboys. I have no beef with them, but just that's where we are right now.
Well, we had that pretty much dominating fashion on Sunday night. And then we went into the Monday night game between the Packers and the Raiders. And I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. This game just was flat out ugly offensive for the offensive side of these two teams. The Packers, remember going into this game, were on a long rest because they played the week before on Thursday night. So they had time to prepare for this game against the Raiders. And they just looked flat out terrible offensively. They didn't have Aaron Jones in this game. They're still without David Bakhtiari, who's going to be out for the rest of the regular season. And Elton Jenkins is also hurt right now for this team. And it's showing on the offensive side of the ball because they really need those pass protection for Jordan Love. He was pretty much pressured most of the night from Max Crosby. And it led to Jordan Love making a lot of big mistakes in this game. He goes 16 for 30, 182 yards, 3 interceptions, including the game-winning pick at the end of the game for the Raiders. And Vegas is able to get, in a lot of people's minds, a surprising win at home, beating the Packers by a final of 17-13. Josh Jacobs had a go-ahead touchdown early in the fourth quarter to give the Raiders the win. The Raiders didn't play this game great offensively too, but their defense is a huge reason why they win this game. Now go to 2-3 and have a chance to go to 500 if they beat the Patriots this upcoming Sunday. And now for the Packers, where do they go from here now, Johnson? Going into their bye week now at 2-3 with a lot of questions about their offense.
Regroup. Jordan Love, it's his first year starting as a quarterback. I realize it's his 4th year in the league, but he's still on the younger side.
This is only his 6th NFL start.
Yeah, this is his first year as a full-time starter. Give him some time. He's still a rookie with quotation marks. He's a senior redshirt. That's what we gotta call him.
Yeah, my only griping beef with him was that last interception that he threw. It was 3rd and 10. They didn't have to throw the ball into the end zone because there was still about a minute left in the clock. And he saw the one-on-one ball with Christian Watson, and he underthrew the ball and got intercepted. And that's a play where you can't make that type of throw. If you're going to do something, at least throw it away, give your team a chance of 4th down, not try to go one-on-one right there, because that 4th down, that makes more sense. That's the game right there. But you still had an extra down, so at least try to get maybe a scramble, at least get like 2 or 3 yards and set up a 4th and medium. And he just really made a boneheaded decision on that play. But they also have had some really bad play calling too, and that's another thing that the Packers fans have had beef with, is that the play calling so far this year for the offense has been poor. And if you really want to get Jordan Love developed, something's got to be fixed. Whether it's Matt LaFleur giving up the play calling, or just I don't even know, or just trying to fix whatever you're doing that's not working right now, because they got to figure out something, because there's going to be a lot of questions going into the offseason if they don't start picking it up. There'll be questions about if LaFleur is going to be the head coach going into next year. There'll be questions of, is Jordan Love our quarterback going into next season? There's a lot of uncertainty right now in Green Bay, and they have got to fix it, and they've got a bye week to do so before their next game, which will be in week number 7.
All right. With that being said, Nick, are you ready for the greatest time of the week? It is the mushing hour. We have a loaded schedule this week for this upcoming week in the NFL. Lines for week 6, the hottest lines available, hot off the presses. And Nick, time for the first game. We have the Broncos visiting the Kansas City Chiefs going into
Arrowhead.
Kansas City.
But yeah, Kansas City.
Into Kansas City, Arrowhead Stadium. Kansas City minus 10.5 point favorites at home. 47.5 is the slated over-under. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Give me minus 10.5. It's a miracle that this Broncos team has a win under its belt, and they're not going to get another one here. I know the Chiefs haven't looked very good, but this Broncos defense is paper thin. It is Swiss cheese. Give me Patrick Mahomes to throw about 4 touchdowns.
Well, the Chiefs have won 15 in a row against the Denver Broncos, so it has been a while since Denver has pulled off a win against Kansas City.
The Undertaker at WrestleMania.
Exactly. But if you remember what happened last year between these two teams, the Broncos played the Chiefs pretty close in both of those games. They did lose
but
both.
They had a better head coach than Nathaniel Hackett, and I think Sean Payton realizes that now, too.
Yikes. That's a statement I didn't think I'd hear. But you have said it, the Chiefs have not looked strong this season, and correct me if I'm wrong, have they covered a game this year?
The Chiefs have not covered a game this year, which means they are due.
They might have covered the game against Jacksonville, but and Chicago. So they've covered 2 out of their 5.
2 games, okay, that's not bad.
Listen, it's been a rough start it's been a rough year for me in the pick'em so far. I'm 5 games under 500. I need something to spark my renaissance to get back into the standings. I'm gonna take Denver to cover. It's a risky pick, but I could just see the Broncos losing by 10 points. So the line's 10.5. If they lose by 10, that's all I need to happen. I could see it happening. I'm gonna call me crazy, but I'll go with Denver plus 10.5.
Alrighty then. So our second game here, we have our London game. So get up early, set your alarm clock because we got the Ravens and Titans playing in Europe, playing in London. I believe it's Wembley. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I want to say it's in Tottenham.
It's in that sounds about
right.
Tottenham. So Tottenham's going to have a winning team in their stadium that the fans are going to cheer for. What I say. This is the real football being played over there. We have the Ravens -4 favorites technically on the road because the NFL scheduling is weird like this. The over-under is slated at 41. Give me Ravens -4. Both these teams on equal footing, and I don't think the Tennessee Titans are going to beat the Baltimore Ravens. This is a Swiss cheese defense, kind of like the Broncos, and Lamar Jackson should be very motivated from his disappointing week last week.
I have been back and forth on this game because the Ravens, in my opinion, should win, but they should have won last week against Pittsburgh, and they let that game slip away from them. And this is the Titans. And listen, I think the Titans' defense is one of the more disrespected defenses in the entire NFL. I think that that's solid of a defense, and they can be able to contain this Ravens offense to a point. And I honestly think we're going to see an under in this game. I think this is going to be a matchup where there's going to be a lot of running. You know, the Ravens had their issues with their passing last week because of drops. And I think that could lead to them trying to lean towards the run this week. We saw what the Colts did against the Titans' rush defense, putting up 150 plus yards rushing, especially with Zach Moss. And you have Derrick Henry on the other side for Tennessee. I see this being a game where a lot of clock is chewed. That leads to a low-scoring game. Give me about a 20-17 final for the winner. So I got the under in this one.
All right, I like it. I screened game in London. Because they're so used to games ending 0-0, 37 points were below their mind. All
exactly.
Right. We have the Seattle Seahawks on the road going into Houday, Cincinnati. Cincinnati Bengals at home, -3 favorites, 45.5 is the slated over-under. Give me Bengals -3. Joe Burrow is back. Geno Smith's not going to know what hit him. Pete Carroll should retire. Jamar Chase is back. They might have T. Higgins. Joe Mixon's looking hot. This team is ready to make a run, and it's going to start here.
I love the over in this game because this is a matchup where the Bengals offense looked pretty good last week, and you would hope that this is going to be the start of them getting back to the Bengals that we know all too well. And the Seahawks, we know that they have playmakers on their side of the ball, and against a Bengals defense that has been very hit or miss this season. So I can see this being a very high-scoring game. Give me the over for this one.
These would all be my second picks, Nick, so we're kind of agreeing, but not really.
Okay. All right. That's all I have to hear.
We have the 49ers on the road going into Cleveland. Cleveland Browns at home, even though they're on the road. The San Francisco 49ers are 5.5-point favorites. Over under slated at 37.5. This is way too many points to be given the 49ers. They may have 30 points by the end of the third quarter. So give me the over of this game.
However, they almost put up the over themselves against Dallas.
Yeah, and I expect Cleveland to at least get a touchdown or two. So give me the over this game. That's disrespectful.
Well, I think the biggest reason why I think it gets this low is we don't still know the health of Deshaun Watson right now. And if it is going back to Dorian Thompson-Robinson in this game, we saw what happened with him a couple weeks ago against Baltimore. It was not a pretty sight for him in that game. So to be going up against this defense could be a reason why the over-under is slated at the current, line that it's at. I think Watson will play just because he's had the extra week because of the bye week. But I just think this 49ers defense is so good right now, and they're just firing on all cylinders. I'm going to have the Niners to cover. Give me the San Francisco 49ers minus 5.5.
I like that as well. We're kind of just trading whether it's the over, the under, whether it's the points. We're kind of agreeing. The only thing we haven't agreed on is that Chiefs game. Okay,
Right.
the next game we have here, we have the Indianapolis Colts going into Saxonville. Wait, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Jacksonville. That's going back a couple of years now. Excuse me. Jacksonville Jaguars at home, 4.5-point favorites. 45.5 is the slated over under. Give me Jacksonville minus 4.5. They're going to be happy to be playing on U.S. soil in front of their home fans once again. Trevor Lawrence is looking hot. Calvin Ridley seems like he's really picking it up. And Christian Kirk is emerging as a legit wide receiver one. Give me Jacksonville to cover 4.5 points.
Same with Calvin Ridley. He's also been amazing for this team. They have so many playmakers on the offensive side. If you remember the first game these two teams played in week number 1, there was a lot of turnovers that happened, and it was a 31-21 win for Jacksonville to go to 1-0 on the season. And obviously Anthony Richardson played in that game. Now he's out in this game, and the biggest story for it is that Gardner Minshew is making his return into Jacksonville to face his former team, the Jaguars. This is probably going to be one of the better games of the week, in my opinion. But I just think the way Jacksonville's going right now, they get a big momentum boost with those 2 wins in London. I'm going to go with our first mush of the day, Johnson. I'm going to go Jaguars minus 4.5 as well.
All right, so everyone knows to take Colts plus 4.5 now. That's that's set in stone.
Yeah.
Okay, the next game we have here, we have the Lions going on the road into Tampa Bay, taking on the Buccaneers. Detroit on the road, minus 3-point favorites. 44 is the slated over-under. Give me the over this game. Give me the over. Baker's going to come out swinging. Jared Goofball's going to come out swinging. Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, probably not.
If they play, yeah.
If they play him, that's what I'm saying. Probably not. He's probably not going to play this week. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Give me Rachaad White. A lot of offensive superstars this game. Defense is shaky on both sides, so give me the over.
Well, the Lions coming off that game in which they didn't have Gibbs and Amon-Ra, but they still put up, I believe it was 42 points against the Panthers. And obviously the Panthers are over 5, so it's not really, not really fair to say that this is how scary this offense is. But they are scary, just the fact that they're doing this without 2 of their best playmakers, even though they're not using Jahmyr Gibbs like everyone would hope they would use him. And it's a kind of a weird game because you're going into this one where both teams are currently in first place in their respective divisions. And I also love the over, but I won't make that my pick. I'm going to go Detroit minus 3. I just think the Lions...
This is another time we switch.
Yeah, I just think that the Lions are the better team on paper, and I could see this being a very high-scoring game, but I don't want to double mush it like we did with the previous game, so I'm just going to play it safe and go Detroit minus 3 in this one.
Okay, so we have here, we have the next game, Philadelphia Eagles fly, going on, taking the
Disgusting.
New York Jets in the dump known as MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Okay, we have Eagles on the road, minus 7 favorites, 41.5 is the slated over-under. Is Aaron Rodgers coming back?
No.
Eagles minus 7. You can go.
This is so tough because the Jets just lost Elijah Vera Tucker on their offensive line. He's out for the season. That's a big blow to their offensive line, and they're facing this very taunted Eagles defensive line that has so many good playmakers up front. A part of me really wants to say, you know what, the Jets could cover this game, but I just don't know if it's going to be possible enough because of how many players the Eagles have offensively too. Even if Sauce Gardner was to go up against A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith, who's going up against the other one? Is it going to be DJ Reed? It can't be, I think, because I think he's still injured, if I'm not mistaken. And he is. He's questionable right now. So Reed's still questionable. He might play. If he doesn't play, then it's going to be Bryce Hall going up against one of them. And he got the game-winning touchdown against Denver. Great for him, but I just can't see the Jets pulling it off. I'm going to go Eagles minus 5.5 with an alternate spread.
All right, I respect it. Okay, here we have the New York Giants at Buffalo Bills going up to Orchard Park. Buffalo minus 14 points favorites. Yikes. 45 is a slated over-under. Nick, I have faith that your Giants will cover. They're not going to win.
Even with Tyrod Taylor maybe starting?
This is the Tyrod Taylor revenge game.
Oh, my God.
So Tyrod will lose by 11 points.
This is
Giants plus 14.
Well, again, we're going into our regular scheduled program of, is Saquon Barkley going to play or not? Because if Saquon plays...
you're going to say pain or suffering.
Well, it's just pain and suffering no matter what. I don't even have to say it. It's pain and suffering no matter what it is. The fact that the Giants have a near 11% chance of winning, according to ESPN, is mind-boggling to me. I don't really see how that is possible. Andrew Thomas probably won't play again. We don't know about Daniel Jones' health. We don't know about Saquon's health. He almost played this past weekend, but they sat him out for another game. He might be able to go in this one, and they really might need him if they're going to have any hope against the Bills. I have no faith right now in this team doing anything. I'm not going to take Buffalo minus 14. I'm going to take Buffalo minus 10 in this game. I think if Saquon wants to play, they'll keep it closer than expected, but the Bills are just too good of a team. They're just way better on paper than the Giants are. It's going to be another rough primetime game for this New York football team.
And our final game, we have the Dallas Cowboys going on the road into Los Angeles. It's a home game for the Cowboys. Dallas -2 on the road. Under is 51, and this is for Los Angeles Chargers, by the way. The joke is that all their fans don't go to games. Okay.
It's probably going to be all Cowboy fans in the stands.
And I hear crickets everywhere. Give me Chargers +2 because Dak Prescott is still going to be seeing ghosts. I think the Chargers are a way better team. I don't think they're better coached, but that's not saying much. They have the better offensive weapons. Is Austin Eckler going to play? Maybe.
He said 99% he's going to play.
Yeah, so that's a maybe if you're a running back. So, but give me the offensive weapons like Joshua Palmer. You got a lot of weapons on offense for Justin Herbert. Keenan Allen. The tight end situation is pretty good. If they get Eckler, that's just another added bonus. And they got rid of J.C. Jackson, so positive for them. So give me Chargers +2.
Addition by subtraction. This is tough because I think Leighton Vander Esch is now, I don't know if he's out for the season, but he got injured in the San Francisco game. So he's going to probably be out for a little bit. That's going to hurt the Cowboys on the defensive side of the ball. But you said it. If Eckler is back for this game, that helps the Chargers in a significant way. Just getting him back really helps, add a lot more to your playbook because Eckler can run and catch. And that really helps this team. The biggest thing in this game is that the Chargers offensive coordinator is Kellen Moore, the former OC with Dallas. And we just saw Dak Prescott have a game in which he threw 3 interceptions. And if there's going to be one way the Chargers win this game, they need their defense to force Dak Prescott to make mistakes. I think Kellen Moore is a perfect candidate to help that defense find out what makes Dak tick and make those mistakes. So I'm going to take the Chargers, and I'm not even going to go +2. I'm going to go Chargers money line in this one. Dallas had a really bad showing against San Francisco. I think the Chargers can pull this one out and go to 3-2 on the year.
All right, I love the confidence, and that concludes our mushing hour. Nick, do you have anything else to say to our wonderful listeners out there before we head off?
I'm not ready for Sunday. That's all I can say. But I'm always happy to watch football, even though my team sucks.
Yeah, me too. That's what Red Zone is for. God bless America.
True. Scott Hansen is my true idol, and I love him and everything that he does for me on every single Sunday, as he's inspired our mushing hour, Johnson. He's one of the biggest reasons why we have it.
Absolutely.
But we'll have to see what happens in week number 6 in the National Football League and what it will do for these teams going into the remainder of the season, as the trade deadline is vastly approaching in the NFL, so it could be leading to some big-time movement for these teams to try to get into the postseason this upcoming year. But that is going to do it for the All Gas No Break Sports Show this week. Week number 5 in the books. We now head to week number 6. How will all of our teams fare? I know Johnson and I are definitely looking forward to our games this upcoming Sunday. We'll have to see how everyone does as we will recap these upcoming games this next week, looking into week number 7 into our next show. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson with the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your weekend.